Welcome to another video, ladies and gentlemen. Today, the topic of discussion is human experimentation. Now, the reason I'm talking about it is a pretty simple one. It's because I've never heard any candidate, running for president or whatever, speak about it. And I think it's something that is sort of a dark stain, right, on the history of this country. So, for the purpose of clarity, let me just go off camera for a second. Let me show you something. All right, so this is the Nuremberg Code, and what it states is pretty simple. It's a set of ethical research principles for human experimentation. But this came after the Second World War, right? Subsequent to the Nuremberg trials. Now, let me ask you a very simple question. Even if I did not tell you what that was, does somebody have to come, some governing body, some person of some authority, have to tell you that it is wrong to experiment on people? Is that something that somebody actually has to verbally tell you? Do you not have something within you that says, you know what, to that extent, it's not right? Like, you know what I'm saying? I don't get like how people actually had to put things in place to tell people that, listen, this is not right. You shouldn't be doing this. But that's what we're dealing with. So let's jump right in. I have a list here of some of these experiments that were conducted right here in America. Right? We're not going to talk about the things that were done outside. We're going to talk about here because one of the things I really hate, is for those, so-called conservatives, especially the Negropean ones, right? The blacks that suffer from self-hate. They come and say, oh, if it's a Republican government, we won't have these problems. And, it's a lot of BS as far as I'm concerned. I'm a conservative myself. But I put no faith or trust in mine. I am always leery and watching everybody with the side eye because I know how people are. Evil. The first one we're going to talk about, and I have my notes so you'll see me glancing down occasionally. The military experiments of mustard gas, 1942 to 1975. Now we're talking about 60,000 military personnel being exposed to different levels or exposure of mustard gas, 4,000 of which was severe. We're talking about military personnel experimenting on military personnel. They're so-called brothers in arms. Second one on the list is the Tuskegee experiment. Everybody should know this one by now because it was a whole thing during the pandemic about why black people were so-called adverse to getting these shots because of that experiment. And of course, they rolled out a blackface to say, hey, it's safe, blah, 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 blah. But if you have any sense, as I said, you watch everybody and you keep a side eye on them. Because although this is largely blamed on the U.S. Public Health Service, I will go off camera again briefly just to show you this. You know who else was involved? Let's see. You see what it says on the screen? Do you see who else was involved? Center for Disease Control and Prevention. Right? So when you have these same people coming to you and say, oh, well, take this, do that, because we are interested in your health and blah, blah, blah. You have to watch them with the side eye. You can't just be so trusting of people because they have some sort of name of recognition that you're willing to let them slide if anything. No, there's a track record. You have a bad track record. So obviously, I gotta keep both eyes on you. Next one is Project MK Ultra. We all heard about that one. I actually made a video about it probably several months ago right now. It was basically mind control using things like sleep deprivation, drugs, etc. Um, Project MK Ultra was ran by the CIA, 1953 to 1973. Now, if you ask me, and the reason I'm doing this is twofold. One, because I think it's important for people to know the information, obviously. But secondly, because the question that I constantly ask myself is, are these experiments on people still going on without our knowledge? And my contention would be yes. I think it is. Now, that's my opinion, right? But if you see society, you see how people tend to move in a herd mentality when certain forces are pressed upon them. It's evident that they're using it in a different way, but people are being manipulated still, best believe. We also have Operation Midnight Climax, which is an offshoot of Project MK Ultra. Basically, what happened was we have these ladies of the night, prostitutes. They would get these Johns, right, to go to a hotel room or whatever. They would dose these guys with LSD while these operatives are behind some sort of two-way mirror or something, recording everything that these people are doing. Now, think about the kind of invasion of privacy we're talking about here, right? Now, I know you're not supposed to, get prostitutes or whatever, but, to each his own. I don't know these men's situations a long time ago. Imagine you get a prostitute, you go to a place and there's a two-way mirror. Everything you do being recorded. And that was back then. You think now because they're like, supposedly privacy laws in place, you think they won't do something like that? Keep kidding yourself. We have another one, Project Sunshine. Now this one it just left a bad taste in my mouth when I heard about it. This was in 1953. It was basically a radiation experiment. So what these people were doing were procuring, stealing the bodies of babies and young children from all over. So not they were not just stealing them from the U.S., but the research was being done in the U.S. About 1,500 bodies and body parts of babies and children to test the radiation. I think it was on strontium 90 to test the absorption rate. And when I say stealing, I really mean stealing because none of the parents of these children, who had passed away, none of them were informed that their child was being taken to be experimented on. I mean, I know the child is dead, but still, what? The Milgram experiment. Now, this one was 1961. The motivation for this experiment, allegedly, was they wanted to find out what was the driving force behind the Nazis who, brutalized and really, did horrendous things to the Jewish community under the Nazi regime and Adolf Hitler. So they had these experiments that they conducted where this guy in a lab coat, assuming some authority figure, would tell somebody else, "Hey, your job is to give this person incremental shocks of 15 volts every time they get an answer wrong." The person that they're not seeing, who they're supposed to be shocking, is actually an actor. They're not really being shocked. But the person who is applying the shock really thinks that they're being shocked. Do you know that they had, what was it, a 75% pass rate? And passing mean that these people shocked this person, or at least thought they were shocking this person, up to, I believe, 450 volts. Now, do we not see that today? Do we not see the bootlicks who will do and say anything for an assumed authority figure? That's why I say, if you think about it with just a little bit of deductive reasoning, you can see that these experiments have carried on in today's society. They're still being carried out. It's just that you don't know. Next one we have on the list is the Stanford prison experiment. That It was the psychological impacts of imprisonment. This was in 1971. So what you basically have is a group of students who are broken into two. One set will be the guards, one set will be the prisoners. This experiment was supposed to run, and I'm smiling because it is so crazy how things went left so fast. You know that Ron Burgundy meme where that escalated quickly? Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Two groups of students, guards, inmates. Within no time flat, you have the guards brutalizing the inmates. Now, these are not actual prison guards and these are not actual prisoners. But with that assumed power, they began to assert it on the other students who were just students, not really inmates. It was pretend. Next on the list is the San Quentin prison experiments. Now, this one, the dates are a little bit sketchy. One source says 1913 to 1951. Wikipedia is saying 1919 to 1940. Regardless, this physician, who was the head physician at San Quentin, um, and I have him here. Let me go off camera again so I can show you. Um, what was his name again? Dr. Leo Stanley, I believe was his name. The guy was a complete nutter, okay? A nutter, as the Brits would say. This is his biography here. Um, this guy was doing sterilization experiments, right? Alleged treatments for Spanish flu, vasectomies, and even possible rejuvenation of, being virile again, so to speak, to keep it clean, by doing testicular transplantations. If you see right here, it says by 1940, Stanley had performed over 10,000 testicular implants in San Quentin. Mind you, at the very top, it says in 1913, despite having no surgical experience, Stanley was hired as a chief surgeon at this state prison. So how did that happen? Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know how he got into that position and ended up doing all this crazy stuff, but as I said, it happened. That's the part that we really have to take into consideration. Next on the list, we have the University of California experiments on newborns. This was the early 1960s on 113 babies. Now, the various things that were done to these babies, I mean, I don't even really want to talk about them because it's kind of, it's as I said in the beginning. Does somebody actually have to tell you about this code? Does some authority figure have to make up a law saying you shouldn't do this in order for you to know that you shouldn't do it? You know what I mean? Um, Next one on the list is the Vanderbilt University's vitamin drinks. And this was after World War II. It ran for about 4 years. It was an experiment on 800 pregnant women that were given some sort of concoction, which they were told was a vitamin drink, right, for them and the child they were carrying. Come to find out, it's actually some sort of radioactive iron that they're being dosed with, which led to some of the fetuses dying, getting cancer. The mothers, same thing, getting cancer, losing their hair, losing their teeth. Now you have to understand, in all of these instances, the problem is informed consent. That's the actual problem, right? When you don't know what it is that you're getting yourself into, you don't know what the outcome is going to be, you don't know how severely you can be hurt, maimed, right? Probably for life, or the worst part of it, dying. And as I said, this is something I have heard nobody talk about. I mean, yeah, there are people that may speak about it on YouTube, but when I say, I mean people in political power, right? That will come out and say, this is something that should never happen, will never happen again. If we find out about it, we're going to stamp it out. We're not going to stand for it. I don't hear that, which is why I think, you know, maybe it's still happening, right? I don't know if the kind of experiments regarding the babies is still happening, but I did see something pretty interesting. Um, this article right here, I'm going to pull it up so you can see it. And I'm going to go off camera so I can show you better. I saw this, right? Can you see that? What it says? Nazi-like experiments being done by abortionists at the University of California, San Francisco. Now, this is the same University of California that we just discussed with the experiments on the newborns. However, the one I spoke about was in the early 1960s. I want to just hit this hyperlink so you can see this for yourself. I think it's this one. Because, as I said, the thing that concerns me the most, right, is are they still going on? Do you see what that study date says there? Do you see this? See this information? Do you see what they're testing? 178 children, babies, right? So the fact that people think that, oh, this is arcane, it's old, this stuff won't happen anymore, this is a thing of the past. Nothing could be further from the truth, man. You have to be aware that these things are happening. There's allegedly people spraying the atmosphere with all kinds of crazy stuff, trying to block out the sun, trying to control people's behavior. I mean, even just the food that you buy in the grocery store. Look on the ingredient list. Tell me what it is that is in those ingredients. The same ingredients that you cannot read, that you would need like a degree in chemistry or some sort of high science for you to read and know what is in it. Some of y'all, I know y'all can't pronounce the names of the things in those foods y'all buy. I know because I just know. Trust me. Right. So as I said, even though in the political sphere, I am on the conservative side of things, definitely. Views, beliefs, etc. But when it comes to saying, oh, well, this person, whether it's Vivek, what's his face, or Trump, or, no, man, there's a lot of things that need to be addressed. I mean, we're not even talking about racial issues on, Alabama and all this other stuff. Just key things that have been a part of this country's history that were hidden. And if it wasn't for some sort of whistleblower or, that one person with a conscience, I was like, I probably can't do this shit. I can't do it no more. I gotta tell somebody. Right? Because this is how these things come out. It's not like one person. There's a lot of people involved in these things. Right? And it's only because whatever government documents end up being declassified, people have to file FOIAs, which is the Freedom of Information Act, to get documents released to them. Sometimes it's so heavily redacted you can't tell who was involved, but these things have happened. You hold on. I'm gonna go off camera for a minute. Let me show you. You can literally go online and find this stuff out yourself, right? Because it's not hidden, right? The information about MK Ultra, a long time ago, people thought it was crazy. I showed you the one on Leo Stanley. I showed you the one from the university. The Tuskegee experiment, the mustard gas experiment, right? This is the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Right? All this information is out there. And mind you, the list I gave right now is not an exhaustive list. This is just, 10 of those that I thought were pretty egregious. And, I thought some people might know some of them. Some of them you might not know, but I was like, all right, I'll go with these 10. This stuff is disturbing, man. Just think about the number of people that were affected. I mean, just the mustard gas experiment. We're talking about 60,000 military personnel. These are 60,000 people that have families, that probably have children, a mother, a father, nieces, nephews. Think about the effects, like going through the family. Just 4,000 of them severely, burned by mustard gas, you know, have their lives destroyed. But somebody has to come up with a code to tell you that, hey, man, you can't do shit like that. But it's crazy because Operation Paperclip. You have these people committing all these atrocities, and then rather than punishing them to the fullest extent of the law, the United States government is like, hey, you guys want a job? This is what happens, all right? And Operation Paperclip was all the people that should have been prosecuted for being war criminals under Nazi Germany. Rather than saying, hey, you guys need to stand trial, we're going to make sure you guys. And when I say furthest extent of the law or fullest extent of the law, I mean the death penalty. That's what I mean. Like people that do these things, that's what they deserve. Like you don't deserve anything less, right? But rather than that, it's like, hey, come work for us in America. So when you have the government willing to look the other way just for what they consider probably the greater good, right? Dropping atom bombs in Japan, how can you really trust these people? And I don't really care who's in power. You can't trust them either way. The power should be in the hands of the people always, right? Always. You should never put the power in their hands. Yeah, you want them to defend your borders, make sure they don't trample on your rights, fix the infrastructure, blah blah blah. But you don't want to give them power where somehow they're the puppeteer and you're the puppet. No, it should never be that way. Right? If you're the one getting them into that seat of power, then the power is really yours. And that's how I want to end this video, to let people know that don't be puppets, man. Don't be puppets on a string. And don't be naive either. Don't be naive to think, oh well, this is so long ago. Uh, Pish posh, won't happen again. Really? You think so? Well, me, I err on the side of caution. So until next time, I suggest that's what you do as well. Err on the side of caution. I'm out. Peace.